sponsored by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast rentals in Brooklyn, New York. To find out more, visit their website, jmrny.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program we're going to be talking about some more movies in our streaming movie catch-up episode, Movies from 2020. Joining me once again to give us the rundown and talk about some of these films, my good friend and the man behind the I Actually Paid to See This blog, Mr. William Hammon. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, Jay. I think I might have to change the name of the blog at this point. It's more like I paid for a streaming service when I already pay for cable, so I'm paying for the same channel twice and watching stuff because I'm bored. God, let me go back to a theater.
Yeah, you become the Netflix channel, Netflix review channel.
I'll wear like 12 masks on top of each other. Let me just go back to a theater, please.
We need to get Bill a hazmat suit so he can go back to the movies. Anyway, we got a lot of movies to talk about, so I want to delve right into it. First movie, which was on Netflix. This is a remake of a classic, Rebecca, starring Armie Hammer and Lily James. It's a remake of a Hitchcock classic from 1940. Tell us a bit about Rebecca.
Rebecca is based on a novel by Daphne du Maurier from 1939, I believe, maybe 38, about a young woman who, she has no name. She's not given a name. She marries a young widower named Maxim de Winter and goes to live in his palatial estate called Manderley in England. She's basically bombarded by the memory, the artifacts, the images of the late Rebecca, Maxim's first wife. And she deals with kind of adjusting to life as a member of the landed gentry now, because she's a commoner. She comes to loggerheads basically with the head of the house staff who obsessed over Rebecca. Basically thought of her as her biggest confidant, maybe was even in love with her to an extent, Mrs. Danvers. And then there's a little bit of a mystery as to how Rebecca died, some kind of affairs with one of her cousins, and a whole bunch of other gothic romance mystery stuff that was originally made into a movie in 1940 by Alfred Hitchcock. It was his first major release in the West, and it's his only film to win Best Picture. So the moment this movie was announced, my red flags went flying because there's two things you just don't do. You don't remake Best Picture winners, see the 2006 version of All the King's Men, and you don't remake Hitchcock, as Gus Van Sant and Vince Vaughn learned with that terribly ill-advised shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. So when you're committing two cardinal sins in one movie, you're already behind the eight ball. And unfortunately for me, I love Armie Hammer as an actor. I love Lily James as an actress. She's one of my favorites. You know, her roles in Baby Driver, Yesterday. She's the only one that actually made the Cinderella remake by Disney tolerable. Like she has this ability to just light up any scene she's in. But they just give, unfortunately, just one-note performances that don't really go anywhere. And all of the teeth and suspense of the movie are just kind of ripped out in favor of just scenery. I'll grant it's very well-apportioned scenery. The production design crew did a fantastic job on this. In Hitchcock's original, Manderley is vast and open, but for the most part kind of empty. Like, she's basically in a cavern for the most part. He's focusing on her isolation and just how out of her own comfort zone she's in. And of course, her only confidant is Danvers, who's actively working against her. Whereas in this movie, we can still get that sense of isolation while she's tripping over everything in every room that used to be Rebecca's. Like, she literally can't escape it. She has to, tiptoe around it, figuratively and literally, just to avoid breaking everything and becoming even more paranoid. So that aspect of the film, I will applaud, certainly. But the rest of the stuff, I mean, you go from black and white to color, but you have a very drab, washed out color scheme, so it doesn't really add anything there. And while it may be unfair to make the comparison, but in the original, you had Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine as much as I love Armie Hammer and Lily James, they do not come anywhere close to Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine. You might as well ask a dog to be a 747. It's just not going to happen.
One thing I realized I watched the remake, and then I went back and watched the original. And one of the things I really discovered is that I really don't like the Laurence Olivier character. Like he's very unlikable to me in the 1940 original version, and in this version, I'm like, I don't really feel too much about him either way. Like, he's just a good-looking rich guy kind of thing. There's not a lot. It doesn't feel like there's a lot to him. Like, I don't feel like he's tortured. I don't feel like there is that like undercurrent of pain and suspense and darkness and all that stuff, which you do get with the Olivier version.
Both films open with Mrs. De Winter dreaming about Mandalay burning up. That both films open that way, and it's because they tell you in narration Mandalay's long gone at this point. In the original version, Joan Fontaine, as the future Mrs. De Winter, comes across Laurence Olivier standing on a ledge in Monaco, looking out over the water, looking like he might jump, looking like he's staring at something like that 1,000-yard stare. And initially, he's quite curt with her, like because she surprised him by even being there. And then later on, he meets her in the same hotel and strikes up a conversation. They get to know each other. So already, just from Olivier's eyes in two scenes, you can tell that there's something much darker underneath the surface. You don't know if he's a tortured soul. You don't know if he's a villain. You don't know if he's violent. Whereas Armie Hammer, he meets Lily James through a meet cute in the hotel cafe, which just doesn't work on a lot of levels. And then for the rest of the courtship period, which is basically the first 20 minutes of the film in both versions, when they're in Monaco, he's just milquetoast. And there's nothing wrong with being milquetoast, but again, when you have this to compare with, like, if this were the only version of Rebecca, I probably rate it higher than I did. But because I know that what we have to work with throws it off in a way that I don't think can be redeemed. And it doesn't help when the director basically is like, oh, no, it's not a remake. It's another interpretation of the novel. You have the exact same opening shot. It's a remake.
The difference in the meeting is huge because it's a comedy meetup. You feel like these people are in a rom-com. It doesn't feel like there's no mystery to it.
Yeah, there's nothing potentially sinister about any of this, and there's no depth to it. It's just a surface level meet cute. Which again, if this is a rom-com, fine. You know that can be what it is.
I think one of the other things that lacks too is like with Lily James. I think she's just too pretty. Like Joan Fontaine was a beautiful woman, but she mastered the art of plenitude. You know, like
and Lily James is very much an ingenue. And to be fair, I have not read du Maurier's novel. I know there are some parts in the remake that hew closer to the page, like the specific circumstances about Rebecca's death. This version is much closer to the actual written page than the original film was. But I think again that falls under artistic license.
Hitchcock was limited too as to what he could show and what he could talk about in 1940.
Yeah, there's this lascivious cad who drops by and hits on Mrs. De Winter and playfully flirts with Danvers a couple of times, and it's just kind of left as him being a cad in the original film, whereas in the remake it's a bit more specific that he's actually Rebecca's cousin and there might have been something incestuous there. And yeah, 1940s audience, we really don't want to tread over that ground. Those are minor details that I don't think took away from the overall product of the Hitchcock version. Again, this new version is technically closer to the page in describing how Rebecca died. But the atmosphere, the implication of it is still there in Hitchcock's film. The weight of what happened is still equal in both films, even if one or two details is changed.
Would you recommend Rebecca, the new one?
Maybe as a comparative piece, just to kind of like see what can change from one version to the other. But again, I followed up. It's like two cardinal sins. Because I mean, my basic rule with remakes is you have to give me a compelling reason to watch them, because you're telling me to pay money either directly by going to the theater or indirectly through my streaming service. You're telling me to pay money to watch something I could already watch, that I've already seen. So there are circumstances where that works, like the Coen brothers doing True Grit. I was like, those guys have established themselves as true auteurs, so let me see what their take is on this material. That's compelling. But Netflix saying, here's another version of this film. Oh, by the way, it's one of Hitchcock's best. Oh, by the way, it won Best Picture. And oh, by the way, we have a sample size of why you shouldn't do this. If anything, this should have been a reason to go just completely bats. Just go balls to the wall, throw everything out there, see what sticks, and try to be controversial, try to be provocative. And it's just dull.
Maybe do like a modern adaptation of it or something, like bring it into the 21st century or some kind of something like that.
I mean, take a look at this year's at the 2020 version of The Invisible Man. That was ambitious potentially to a fault. It was like, it's one of the classic monster stories. It's one of the hardest stories to tell because, again, your villain is not seen by design. And to modernize that into gaslighting and abusive relationships, and Elizabeth Moss giving one of the best performances of her career, that is some extreme risk-taking, which, even if it doesn't work, it's a compelling enough reason to say, you've got my eyeballs for 2 hours, you got the money out of my pocket. It's like, you've at least showed me that you're willing to try something different.
They make the argument that there's a reason why they made this story again.
And with this remake of Rebecca, I don't know what that reason is. There's nothing apparent as to what that reason is.
All right, let's move on to the next one, which is Ava. It stars Jessica Chastain, John Malkovich, Gina Davis, Colin Farrell, and Common. I saw it because I was like, oh, a lot of great people in it. It's got a great cast, and it looked really good. It's got this, sexy thriller kind of thing. The whole premise, I wrote down the IMDb descriptions: a deadly assassin who works for a black ops organization traveling the globe, specializing in high-profile hits. When a job goes dangerously wrong, she's forced to fight for her own survival. Which to me sounds like the tagline of I don't know how many movies. I like everybody in this. I didn't think it was poorly made, but to me it was like paint by numbers. Because how many times have we seen this, like, oh, she's a super spy who's trained by the military, and then she's out killing people, and it's a lot of silencers. It was like John Wick without the style or personality.
I'm glad you mentioned John Wick, because there's become a late trend, and for the most part, it's been a positive one, of actors hitting middle age and becoming action stars. Liam Neeson, Helen Mirren, of course now Keanu Reeves, and Jessica Chastain. I think she's 42. I want to say, so she's just on the cusp of that as well. Charlize Theron with The Old Guard and Atomic Blonde. These people that 20, 30 years ago would have just been dismissed as the end of their career because they hit 30, are now saying, no, we're not even into the autumn years yet, and I'm going to go kick some ass. That's actually a really good idea, and for the most part, it works. Even Ava, I'm not just going to go, it's a bad movie. It's a bad movie, but it's not offensively bad. Like you said, it's very paint by numbers.
It did feel like action movie trope, the movie.
Yeah,
I think it hit like all of them. I almost want to give the film like an A for effort.
This is the ultimate box check movie. Like every cliche, you hit it. And going back to John Wick, and this I think was I guess the one true quote unquote failure of the film to get that kind of a solution.
The biggest difference between the two is, like, with John Wick, the action is so much better. Like, I didn't think the action was bad, but when you look at Wick and you look at, say, actually a closer comparison would be it's Atomic Blonde. They use long takes. Everything is well choreographed. You can see everything. You can see all of the action. It has each action beat, each fight has a story to it, so that you're following along with all of these different beats, and you care about the character because they consistently, they're always putting her in peril.
Which is honestly why I kind of like the climax of the film. because there's a moment where both she and Colin Farrell's like, what the hell are we doing? We're just killing ourselves here. You know what? All debts are paid. Just don't talk to me again, and I'll kill you the next time I see you. Just stay out of my way. I was like, it's a great cast. I saw a review somewhere, probably I think on Rotten Tomatoes, where I wish I could remember the name off the top of my head so I can give proper credit, but it's basically saying like Colin Farrell and John Malkovich know they're A-list actors in a B movie, and so they just have fun with it.
So the next thing we've got, which I did not see, but you did, give us a brief, because we're running out of time, but give us a brief bit of Borat to Electric Boogaloo, subsequent movie film.
Subsequent movie film, delivery of prodigious bribe to American regime for make benefit once glorious nation of Kazakhstan. I mean, I just want to marry that title. It's been 14 years since the first Borat film. There's a weird self-awareness in this movie that there really wasn't the first time around. I saw the original on its opening night with a bunch of my friends from work, packed theater, and we were all... There was one guy in front of me who actually like struggled to breathe. He was laughing so hard. It was one of the most beautiful shared moments of cinematic adventure that I had ever had with other people. And this film, it's never going to live up to that. It's just not possible to. And again, there's this self-awareness because even Sasha Baron Cohen knows, I got away with this once. People are going to recognize me this time, so we got to like step this up a bit. And there's even a whole montage of people recognizing him and asking for autographs and stuff. So he brings in this young Bulgarian actress, Maria Bakalova, as his daughter. Basically, any Central Asian country as being, a patriarchal state that's really not up there on women's rights. Like, the idea is, I can redeem my reputation and make my president look like a strongman to Donald Trump if I literally sell my daughter to Mike Pence. Just that premise alone, it's so absurd, but given everything we've observed for the last 5 years, sadly believable. I mean, there's the irony of it being Mike Pence you're trying to sell to, which obviously Pence is so repressed that that part would never work. But it's a great inciting incident for another Borat-style adventure. And in the age of misinformation, it becomes more important than ever to have this outside fake perspective of saying like, what the hell are you guys doing here? It's like, why are you engaging with this stuff? And I mean, using a Kinko's to literally fax back and forth with the president rather than just sending an email and high-fiving the poor guy who has to write out all these faxes and send them at the Kinko's. Little touches like that are what make this movie great. And I won't spoil too much, but there's a debutante ball that he stages for his daughter, including a quote-unquote fertility dance of Kazakhstan, it ranks up there as one of the best scenes of all of cinema for the year. Just the way it's executed between the two of them and their erstwhile unaware participants. I mean, obviously, just like with the first Borat, these people, they sign releases that say like, they're going to be in a video or a reality show, something like that. So they kind of dupe them a little bit, but they say it's a documentary or something like that. So it's a manufactured event. It's not that Sasha Baron Cohen and Maria Bakalova just show up and sign up for a normal debutante ball. They put this on themselves and basically pay people to show up. But that never ruins the illusion, basically, because these people are still acting exactly as they would act. In the original Borat film, those dumb frat guys on the RV tried to sue for it's like, you tricked us into saying racist stuff. It's like, no, you guys said on your own. It's like, we just paid you to drive the RV, and you consented to be on camera, and then you said all that stuff. The film obviously got some extra attention for Amazon Prime and some controversy because of a scene where Rudy Giuliani has his hand down his pants. Now, for having seen it, it's pretty innocuous. It really does just look like he's taking off his mic and retucking his shirt just like he says he is. That's all well and good. And the real comedy of the scene is the way Borat bursts into it at the end to try to make it a whole lot more than it is.
All right, man, I got to wrap up, but for those who want to read more of your reviews or know more about you, where can they find you on the web?
The website is actuallypaid.com now. We're going to keep the content going. I'm looking for 2021 to be a very strong year. The Oscar Blitz is going to be something, seeing as how it's not coming till April. So it'll be interesting to see how we can all bounce this stuff out and try desperately to get back to normal and save the theater industry from going underwater.
All right, man. Thanks so much for doing this again. We'll do it again real soon. And thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Once again, I'd like to thank my good friend Bill Hammon for being here, and also our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.